It started with a party. Vivian had just wrapped a major project at work, something her team had been grinding on for months, and to celebrate, her company rented out this modern rooftop loft in downtown Austin, one of those industrial chic spaces with string lights, tall glass walls, and a view of the skyline so perfect you almost forgot how fake everything felt. She asked me to come more than once, said it'd mean a lot to her. "You'll finally get to meet the people I spend half my life with," she told me, half laughing, like she already knew I'd hesitate. "It'll be fun." I almost didn't go. I'd been tired from work, still catching up on sleep from a week of late nights at my own job. But she gave me that look, half teasing, half something else, almost pleading. Caved. The second we got there, she changed. She didn't mean to, maybe, but I noticed it right away. She was magnetic around them, especially him, Logan. He was tall, clean-cut, with that "I meditate before sunrise and own a minimalist espresso machine" vibe. I could tell immediately that he was one of those people who always seemed to belong wherever they were. Vivian led me over to him first, actually. "This is Logan," she said, touching his arm lightly as she introduced us. "The genius who basically carried the whole project on his back." "Not true," he said, smiling at her before turning to shake my hand. "Vivian's being modest. She's the glue." They both laughed. A little too long. I forced a smile, shook his hand, and nodded. "Nice to meet you." Vivian had that glow about her. Eyes a little wider, posture a little straighter. She looked good. She always did, but something about the way she was around him, it made me feel like an outsider in a room full of inside jokes. Like I'd walked in during the middle of a scene that had been playing long before I got there. As the night went on, I kept catching them in the corner of my eye. Logan would whisper something, and Vivian would laugh like it was the funniest thing she'd ever heard. She kept touching his arm. Once, she adjusted his tie for him, just smoothed it out while he looked down at her hands like this was normal. Like this wasn't the first time. At one point, he poured her a glass of wine, and not in the polite, "Oh, let me top you off" kind of way. It was fluid, familiar, like he knew exactly how much she liked, and she knew not to thank him because he'd done it 100 times before. I stood there, watching them from across the room, holding my own drink tighter than I meant to. There were other people at the party, obviously. Her team seemed nice enough. I made small talk with a few of them, an analyst named Priya who asked me what I did for a living, a developer who joked about company perks. But even in those conversations, I kept drifting. My eyes would flick over to Vivian and Logan. They sat close on a long couch in the lounge area, knees brushing. He leaned in to show her something on his phone, and she laughed with her whole face, then rested her chin on his shoulder for a beat too long. That's when it happened. I didn't catch who said it. Maybe it was someone behind me. But the words cut through the ambient music and chatter like a clean snap of a twig. "Wait, is she married?" It wasn't loud, just loud enough, like dominoes, heads turned. Not dramatically, but subtly. A few eyes went to Vivian, then to her hand, her left hand. She had taken her coat off earlier and draped it behind her chair. Her hands had been busy, holding her glass, gesturing animatedly, running through Logan's hair once when he made a joke about a bad haircut. And now her fingers rested lightly on her thigh, the gold band on her ring finger catching the light from a nearby Edison bulb. You know those moments when you feel the entire mood of a room shift, but no one says anything? That quiet, sinking pause? This was that. The air changed. People looked at her, then at Logan. Then, slowly, some of them looked at me. I felt it in my stomach first. A slow, twisting, inward pull. Vivian's reaction was instant. She looked up, laughed a little too loudly, and said, "Oh my God, Logan's gay, you guys. He's literally my best friend. We were just messing with people. Trolling. To lighten the mood." One of the interns, maybe snorted. A few people chuckled, relieved. Someone else raised a glass and said, "Cheers to confusing the straights." And the room thawed just a little. Vivian was smiling. Logan played along, giving an exaggerated yes queen motion with his hands. People laughed harder at that. And just like that, the tension popped like a soap bubble. But me, I wasn't laughing. I stood there, still holding my drink, the condensation now dripping down my hand. My face probably looked calm, but my heart was pounding. Not because she'd lied, not yet. I hadn't even decided if it was a lie. It was the speed of it. The way she didn't blink. The way she said it so easily. Like she'd rehearsed it. Like she'd said it before. She and Logan were suddenly back to talking, and the moment passed, swallowed up by clinking glasses and a new round of music. But I couldn't unhear it. Couldn't unsee it. Trolling people. Lightening the mood. There's nothing funny about a wedding ring unless you're trying to make it disappear. For the rest of the night, I drifted. I watched her dance with coworkers, sip from Logan's glass, and laugh like she didn't have a husband standing 30 feet away, pretending not to exist. I thought about leaving early, but that felt like a surrender. When we finally got in the car, she looked over at me and said, "You okay? You were kinda quiet tonight." I just nodded. "Long day." She leaned over, kissed my cheek and said, "You're cute when you're grumpy." I didn't respond. I turned my face toward the window, watching Austin blur past in yellow streaks of city light. I told myself not to jump to conclusions, not to assume. But deep down, something cold had already taken root. Something heavy. It wasn't the laughter. It wasn't even the lie. It was the look on her face, just before she told it. After the party, I tried to convince myself that I was overthinking it. Vivian was affectionate, warm, sarcastic. She'd always been flirty in that playful, big personality way that drew people in. That was part of what made me fall for her. Maybe I'd misread the vibe with Logan. Maybe her explanation, as quick as it had been, was real. Maybe I'd let one weird moment at a company party get under my skin. But maybe only takes you so far. The next morning, I couldn't stop seeing her hand on his tie. Couldn't stop hearing her say, "We're just trolling people." And most of all, I couldn't ignore that twist in my gut when the room went quiet before the joke, before the recovery. That moment wasn't a joke. That was fear. She was afraid of something. And you don't get afraid unless there's something to hide. After that night, I started noticing things. Not new things, just things I had already noticed but explained away. It started with time. Vivian had been coming home late for months. Not outrageously late, just enough to feel like a slow drip. A meeting that ran long. A networking dinner. An urgent client call. And it was always urgent. Always unexpected. Always just enough to keep me from asking too many questions. She was good at spinning chaos into credibility. Fast-paced industries, high-stakes deliverables, so much pressure. I used to believe it. I think I wanted to. But looking back, it wasn't just the frequency of the excuses. It was the precision. Every alibi had edges sanded smooth. Every story already prepared, as if she knew I'd ask. Then there was her phone. Vivian and I never had that check each other's phones kind of relationship. We didn't need it, or at least we didn't used to. But lately, her phone had become something else. Something sacred. She used to leave it charging on the kitchen counter or face up next to her on the couch. Lately, though, it was always with her. Even during dinner. Always screen down. Once, she took it into the shower and left the water running while she sat on the lid of the toilet, scrolling with her thumb moving fast. I only noticed because I walked in thinking I'd left my toothbrush in there. She jumped when I opened the door, pulled the curtain closed like I'd caught her naked. She said she was checking an email from a vendor. I nodded. That night, her phone buzzed twice past midnight. I saw the screen light up and go dark, face down again. It used to be that when she got a message and laughed, I'd ask what it was. She'd say something like, "Oh, my sister sent me a dumb meme," or Nicole being Nicole. But recently I stopped asking because her responses started feeling like warnings. She'd laugh and then glance up to see if I noticed. Sometimes, when I asked what was so funny, she'd pause and say, "Oh, it's nothing. Just group chat nonsense." Then she'd change the subject so smoothly, I wouldn't even realize we weren't talking about it anymore. Once, I picked up her jacket from the back of a chair to hang it up and smelled cologne. It wasn't mine. Vivian used to hate heavy cologne. Said it reminded her of clubs and frat parties. This one was subtle, musky. masculine in that expensive, understated way. I said, "You smell different. Who was wearing cologne?" She blinked. "No one. I was driving home with the windows up. Probably just got stuck in my hair." "You said you drove alone." She smiled and said, "Yeah, I did. I meant earlier. Never mind." I didn't push it. I told myself it was paranoia. That memory is a tricky thing, and I was probably twisting her words in hindsight. But now, thinking about it, her answer wasn't just flimsy, it was preemptive. Like she'd already had to practice it. I also noticed smaller things. Stupid things, even. Like coffee. Every morning since the year we moved in together, I made her coffee. 2 sugars, a splash of oat milk. She used to say I did it better than any barista. Said it was one of her favorite parts of our routine. But lately, she'd take 1 sip, then forget about it. Once, she dumped the whole cup in the sink without saying anything. When I asked if I made it wrong, she shrugged and said, "No, it's just a little too sweet. I don't like that anymore." That threw me more than it should have. Because she'd liked it that way for 8 years. And if she suddenly didn't, why not just say so? It wasn't the coffee. It was the way she said it. Like it had always been too sweet. Like I was the one who didn't notice. I also stopped being asked to pick things up for her. She used to text me at work asking for oat milk or sushi rolls or dry shampoo or frozen blueberries. The little everyday things that make up a shared life. But the text stopped. I asked her once if she needed anything while I was at the store, and she paused, like I'd caught her off guard. "Oh," she said, "I already took care of it. I don't want to bother you." That phrase, "I don't want to bother you," came up more and more, as if caring was an inconvenience. One afternoon, I got home early and saw her laptop sitting on the kitchen counter, unlocked. That hadn't happened in months. Vivian used to be relaxed about it. She'd work at the dining table, walk away to take a call, and I'd glance over and see Slack messages popping up, spreadsheets open. Now, it was always locked, even if she stepped away for 30 seconds. I once joked that she was acting like a spy. She laughed and said, "You know how strict IT is now." But that day I saw it open. Her calendar was up. I wasn't snooping, not really. I just looked. She'd blocked off several hours that week with a repeating tag. Strat session, client focus. Sounded legitimate, but it was color-coded the same as another meeting I'd seen before. A dinner with Logan plus Westlake lead. I didn't click anything. Didn't take **TS. I just stared at the screen until it went black. Then I stepped back. That night, I asked her casually, "You guys still doing strategy sessions every week?" She nodded. "Always. Too many moving pieces right now." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that I wasn't slipping into some bitter version of myself. Some insecure guy who reads too much into things and makes a fool of himself. I wanted to believe I was still the same man who trusted her. But when I looked at her, I didn't see the same woman. I saw someone who smiled with her mouth, but not her eyes. Someone who told me I was imagining things. Exaggerating. Overthinking. Someone who laughed a little too hard when I brought up Logan. Someone who shut her laptop the second I walked in the room. That word, exaggerating, became a script, a shield. "Babe, you're exaggerating. You always do this. Why do you let your imagination run wild?" Every time I said something felt off, she made it sound like I was the problem. Like I'd lost the ability to see clearly. And maybe I had. But I knew what I felt. And I knew what I saw. What I didn't know yet, what I hadn't admitted to myself, is that the thing twisting in my gut wasn't suspicion anymore. It was certainty. The moment I stopped pretending came on a Friday. I told Vivian I had a business trip, nothing elaborate. Just a casual mention over dinner, the kind of thing she wouldn't question. She nodded, wished me luck, asked when I'd be back. No sadness. No disappointment. Just efficiency. That alone should have hurt more than it did. Instead of leaving town, I checked into a hotel across the street from our building. I sat on the edge of the bed, tie loosened, laptop open, staring at the screen like it might blink first. Months earlier, I'd installed a small security camera in our hallway. Vivian thought it was part of a smart home upgrade, motion alerts, safety, peace of mind. She'd even thanked me for it. I opened the app. The hallway was empty. Still. Quiet. I told myself I was ridiculous. That I'd already crossed a line just by being there. That if nothing happened, I'd delete the app, apologize to myself, and try to be better. Trust her again. Trust us. At 8:37 p.m. The front door opened. Vivian stepped inside first, heels in hand, hair loose around her shoulders. She didn't turn on the overhead light. She never did when she was alone. Then, a second figure entered behind her. Logan. He shut the door with his foot. I didn't breathe. I don't remember blinking. Logan slipped off his coat like he belonged there. Hung it on the hook by the door. Vivian grabbed a wine bottle from the counter without asking if he wanted any. She already knew. They talked in the kitchen, nothing dramatic. Just normal conversation. Comfortable. The kind of tone people have when they've said everything important already. She laughed at something he said and touched his arm. Not accidentally. Deliberately. Her hand stayed there longer than it ever had with me in months. They moved into the living room. Sat on the couch. Too close. Vivian leaned back against him like gravity pulled her there. Logan rested his hand on her knee, thumb tracing slow circles like muscle memory. I watched the clock in the corner of the screen tick forward. 10 minutes. 20. 30. No hesitation. No second thoughts. No guilt. When they stood, Logan reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. She followed him down the hallway, past the camera's reach, toward the bedroom we shared. The feed showed an empty living room. That was enough. I closed the laptop, not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't keep watching. My hands were shaking. My chest felt hollow, like something essential had been scooped out and left behind. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't confusion. This was routine. I stayed in that hotel room all night. I didn't drink, didn't cry. I just sat there, replaying the footage in my head, over and over. The way she didn't check the door. The way he moved like he'd done it before. The next morning, she texted me, "Hope your meetings go well, Redheart." I stared at the message for a long time before replying, "Thanks." When I got home that evening, the apartment smelled like cleaning spray. Fresh. Intentional. She kissed me hello like nothing had happened. Asked about my trip. I lied smoothly. She smiled easily. And that was when it settled in. Not as anger, not even as sadness. As clarity. Because people who are guilty rush. They overcompensate. They panic. Vivian didn't. She had already decided. And now so had I. I didn't confront her. Not yet. That might sound strange. Maybe even weak. But I knew if I came at her too early, she'd twist it. Vivian had a way of turning any confrontation into a misunderstanding. I'd seen her do it with colleagues, friends, even family. She didn't lie outright. She shifted the ground beneath you until you weren't sure what you were standing on anymore. I needed more than hallway footage. I needed undeniable. So I waited. And while I waited, I watched her lie to my face every single day. She smiled over breakfast, kissed me when she got home, gave me updates about work. We landed the client. Logan pulled a miracle. Another late night in the office. We're doing a pitch run-through. She still laughed at her phone, still took it into the bathroom, still locked her laptop even to go refill her water. It was all so casual, so clean. One night, she fell asleep on the couch. Her laptop was open beside her. And for once, she hadn't closed it. I didn't hesitate. It wasn't even protected by a password, just asleep, like a door left open by mistake. I didn't go through messages right away. I went straight to her cloud folder, the one that automatically backed up her camera roll. A hidden backup buried under layers of folders labeled in corporate shorthand, client decks, expense logs, pitch outlines. There it was. A folder named Travel Archive Internal. I opened it. At first, it looked like what you'd expect. Photos from airports, hotel room views, glassy conference centers in places like Seattle, Denver, Toronto. Some were selfies, others clearly taken by coworkers. Vivian with team members, standing in front of whiteboards. harmless, until I got to the blue dress. I remember that dress. Not because I'd seen it recently, but because I hadn't. It was tucked somewhere deep in the back of her closet, a soft fabric that used to be her favorite. She wore it the night we celebrated her promotion 3 years ago. In the photo, she's standing in a hotel room mirror, holding her phone, smiling with just a little too much intention. The kind of smile you don't send to friends or colleagues. I zoomed in. On the chair behind her, just visible in the corner, was a man's blazer. Not mine. Not even close. Navy blue, tailored, draped like it had been taken off in a hurry. And on the nightstand, an open ring box. Small, black, empty. I don't know what chilled me more, the ring box or the fact that she saved the photo at all. Who takes a selfie like that and keeps it? I scrolled further. There were more photos, her walking through a market in Portland, sitting at a rooftop bar in L.A., standing at a window in a New York hotel room with the skyline lit behind her. In most of them, she was alone, but always dressed up, always with wine or candles or a view behind her. Not the kind of pictures you take for work. The kind you take for someone. And then I found the emails. I wasn't even looking for them. I just searched for Logan's name and suddenly there they were. Thread after thread, neatly labeled, casually phrased. Most of it was corporate. Slides, schedules, pitch rehearsal notes. But mixed in were the others. Messages that started professional and drifted. Logan, Tuesday 7:34 p.m. Just checked in. Room's decent, minibar *CKs. Dinner? Vivian, Tuesday 7:36 p.m. Same floor as last time? Logan, Tuesday 7:37 p.m. You know it. Another one later that week. Vivian, still feel like that barista hated us for being too flirty. Logan, she's probably just bitter she's not the one getting kissed in the elevator. Vivian, shut up. Logan, make me. I closed the laptop slowly, like if I moved too fast, it would all come spilling out. I didn't scream, didn't throw anything. I just sat there on the floor next to the couch, the weight of it pressing down like wet concrete. It wasn't just one night. It wasn't even just Logan. It was a pattern, a life I wasn't part of, a version of her that didn't include me at all. The next day, she asked if I wanted to do takeout or cook. I said takeout. Thai. She smiled and said, good choice. Then went back to whatever was on her laptop, like nothing had happened. I didn't tell her I'd seen the photos, or the emails, or that I now had copies of everything on a flash drive in my jacket pocket. I waited. I observed. And in that waiting, something in me hardened. There's a strange kind of power that comes with knowing something someone else doesn't know you know. I didn't feel angry anymore. I wasn't boiling, pacing, rehearsing speeches in my head. I was still, focused, waiting. Vivian, meanwhile, was flourishing, at least outwardly. She started wearing lipstick again, replaced her simple silver earrings with bolder, gold ones. She sang while getting ready in the morning. And when she talked about work, Logan's name came up more than ever. Logan pitched the idea to the regional leads. Crushed it, she said one night over dinner, gesturing with her chopsticks as she picked at pad thai. He's really underrated. Like, people don't give him enough credit for how smart he is. I nodded. Must be nice working with someone you click with. She smiled. It is. That smile stuck with me. It wasn't smug, just at ease. Like she was talking about a person she trusted more than she trusted me. So I went looking for something I wasn't even sure existed, leverage. Proof that crossed the boundary from betrayal to something deeper, something worse. And I found it, not in photos or texts or hotel room selfies, but in her inbox, buried in a folder labeled Client Strat, Internal. At first, it looked like typical workplace chatter. Business updates, timelines, the kind of cold, impersonal corporate jargon meant to keep everyone detached. But one thread caught my eye. It was between Vivian, Logan, and a third person I didn't recognize, someone from the HR team I assumed, based on their address. Subject line: Q3 performance reviews, discussion points. Vivian's message was short, clinical. Mark L. Still flagged as a reputation risk. Better to delay his review until after the quarter closes. No point raising unnecessary questions with the board during renewals. Mark L. I knew him. We weren't close, but I'd met him once at a holiday party a couple years back. Soft-spoken, late 30s, balding. He worked in data analytics. Vivian once called him harmless. Someone who just wanted to coast quietly to retirement. Apparently not anymore. The thread continued. Logan chimed in. Agreed. Keep him quiet for now. If he pushes, loop in Jen from legal. She owes me. No emotion. No hesitation. Just cold calculations about someone's livelihood. What stood out wasn't just the content, but how effortlessly they played puppet master. These weren't employees, they were chess pieces. Disposable. Vivian always talked about leadership like it was about mentoring, empowering, building. But here she was, deciding who got sidelined without so much as a raised eyebrow. I wasn't sure what made me do it. Maybe it was because I saw myself in Mark. Someone who had no idea his name was being passed around like a problem to be managed. Or maybe it was the fact that she didn't just cheat on me. She'd become someone I didn't recognize. Someone dangerous. I printed the thread, exported the attachments, removed all identifying info except the essentials. No names. No sender addresses, just the facts. Then I sent it. Anonymous email. No message. Just a subject line. Internal ethics concern documentation attached. The recipient. Their company's ethics and compliance hotline. Buried on page 7 of their website. I didn't even get a confirmation reply. Just a blank screen that said, "Thank you for your submission." I thought maybe nothing would happen. But a week later, Logan disappeared. Literally. No more Zooms. No team lunches. No more late-night calls from strategy dinners. Vivian didn't mention it at first. She just came home quieter. More distant. Her appetite dipped. She started going to bed earlier. Phone clutched to her chest like a lifeline. I pretended not to notice. One night, I came home and found her sitting at the dining table with her laptop open. But she wasn't typing. Just staring at the screen. The only light in the room was the glow from her monitor. "Everything okay?" I asked, setting down my keys. She blinked like I'd startled her. "Yeah, just tired." She didn't look tired. She looked shaken. I sat across from her. "Work stuff." A pause. Then, "Logan's on leave. Everything all right?" Another pause. Then, quieter. "I don't know." She pushed her chair back and walked to the kitchen. I watched her refill her glass, hand trembling just enough for me to catch it. That was new. The next day, she left for work without kissing me goodbye. That was new too. I stopped asking questions. I stopped pretending. Quietly, I began to untangle myself from her world. Opened a new bank account. Signed a lease on a small apartment across town. I scanned every shared document, every contract with my name on it. House papers, tax returns, insurance, all copied, all stored. She didn't notice. Or maybe she did and just didn't want to know. One morning, she said, "You've been distant lately." I looked at her and said nothing. That silence, heavier than shouting, seemed to rattle her. But it didn't matter anymore. Once you've seen the truth, you don't need to argue. I had the flash drive. I had the files. I had the quiet, heavy clarity of someone who finally stopped waiting to be loved right. The last crack came softly. A photo buried in her phone's favorites. Her hand in Logan's, fingers laced. Her smile small and private. She took it, saved it. This wasn't chaos. It was choice. The next morning, I made her breakfast like always, placed her plate down, sat across from her. "It's over," I said. Her fork didn't move. She didn't cry, just nodded. An hour later, she was gone. No shouting, no final plea. Just the click of the door, and a silence that felt clean. I stayed in that silence a long time. Not alone, free. I didn't play back memories or search for meaning. I just breathed. Some endings don't explode. They exhale. And for the first time in months, I did too.